Dreamer's Den, a podcast about daring to dream, with host Brad Robbins.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brad Robbins, and welcome to the Dreamer's Den, where we explore and examine the lives of those who dare to dream. I'm joined today by BYU alumni, Olympian in the upcoming 2024 Paris Summer Games, and someone who has made a career out of doing something that, honestly, I'm not very good at and I don't like to do, Mr. Clayton Young. Clayton, welcome to the Dreamer's Den.
Thank you so much, Brad, for having me on here.
Absolutely. The more I've dug into your story, the more excited I got about this opportunity to interview you. And frankly, I feel very lucky because I can't even imagine, as your story has come to light, gotten more traction, as you've seen the amazing success on the track. I mean, I'm surprised you're available, to be completely honest.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been busy. I'm not going to lie. Like, there's been a lot of media going on ever since I made the Olympic team. But what an opportunity to be here in the den with you and to share this story. I've had a lot of people ask me, where has Clayton Young been the last couple of years? Like, why are we just learning about him? And I just have to tell them, I've always been here. It's just finally people are willing to tell the story. And so I'm excited to share that with you.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I come from the world of music, and oftentimes you'll see an artist explode on the scene seemingly overnight, as though they had come out of nowhere. And behind every overnight success, I believe there's decades of effort, day in and day out. And it sounds like that's exactly your story, which we're definitely going to get into. But before we go down the road of the obvious, which is your running career, I want to start with, who is Clayton Young when he's not running?
Yeah, who is Clayton Young? We need my wife on here to say all the juicy things about me. But I would say more than anything, if I had to define my roles, it's first and foremost like a husband. And then it's a father. I have two girls, 5 and 3, and they keep me grounded when life is busy and when I'm, receiving all this fame. They keep me really grounded in what this life is all about. I'm also an engineer. I got my master's degree at BYU, and that has kind of taken a pause right now in my life, but I'm sure I'll get back to it. But that's definitely one of my passions. And then I'd also say I'm an adrenaline junkie. I love paragliding. I love driving my motorcycle. I love the need for speed, and maybe that's why I love running so much.
Which is ironic because you're a distance runner, but you love the need for speed.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all wish that we were sprinters or high jumpers, but yeah, sometimes the event chooses you. You don't choose the event.
So growing up, I played baseball and football, and one of the reasons for that was you only had to run so far for so long. And speaking of that, when I met my wife, she met me as a musician, as a singer, and so when I told her, like, before you met me, I was an athlete, and she's like, could have fooled me.
Yeah.
So, well, that's awesome. My dad actually was a graduate, engineering graduate from BYU, and you graduated in mechanical engineering, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So tell me about that world and what you went to do after graduation.
Yeah. So soon after graduation, I went pro in 2019. That's when I finished my eligibility at BYU. And I had won the NCAA 10K on the track, and that propelled me into this professional running scene, which is, most people say, wait, you can do that? Like, you can run pro? That's a thing? I'm not seeing that on like primetime television, but it very much is a thing. And so I went pro, but I was still finishing up my master's degree. And that's one of the big reasons I actually decided to stay here in Utah, was actually to finish up my master's degree while running pro. But it was shortly thereafter that I finished up my master's degree that I've always kind of found in college this beautiful balance between like running and school. Like, sometimes when I'm sick of school, I want to run. And when I'm sick of running, I want to do school. I want to engineer. And as that was kind of wrapping up, I reached out to some of my contacts and I took a chance with a company called Stryker. And I said, hey, I still am running pro. That's what I'm going to do. But I would love to engineer, 15, 20 hours a week if I could. And, I need to be able to travel. I need to be able to work from home. I need to be able to be really flexible with my time. But if you could make that happen, I'd love to be on. And, it was kind of my wish, and I sent it off to them, and they said, well, let us see what we can do. And they came back to me and they're like, you know what? We'd love to have you. Like, as many hours as you want to give. And they kept me really high up on the R&D list. So it was like very no deadlines, early development, sports medicine, surgical equipment for striker. And I feel like I lucked out. And so that's what I was able to do pretty much up until this boom of me going big time on the professional stage of running.
So that resonates with me for a number of reasons. And one of the reasons is I had a similar experience at BYU. So I was on the Young Ambassadors and we toured all over the world, and it kind of like scratched that itch of performing and traveling and doing something that was kind of outside the norm of just being a student. But on the flip side, I was almost said a member of a student in the Marriott School of Business. And that kind of like was something that I was really passionate about on the other side. So you go to class all day and you'd enjoy that, but then you go to rehearsal all night. And then funny enough, as you fast forward even to my experience in the professional world, similar thing. It's like, I love performing and something I still do today, but there's an opportunity to have found a great company to work with so that you can kind of exercise that aspect of who you are and what you do. So I love that you were able to kind of find that balance. And I was asked to speak at the Marriott School about a month or two ago, and a student asked me a question and said, of all the speakers that come through here, I would say the majority are saying like, you need to find one thing and go all in on that one thing. And you're sitting here saying that you're doing multiple things, but you're finding success in multiple things. Like, how do you reconcile that, what seems to be an opposing view? And, it was an interesting question, but my response was never accept that there's one answer, one size fits all. It's like, what works for me may not work for you, or what works for you in one season of life may not work for you in another season. And so I just think that's part of just the evolution, being open-minded, and certainly played a role in your journey, which we'll get to in a minute. But speaking of kind of this world of running, I want to shout out our mutual friend, Todd Garner, for introducing me to you. Remarkable guy who we just happened to meet somewhat randomly in our world of music. But it sounds like he's got two passions in life: music and running. And you've had a chance to meet Todd through running, and it sounds like it's been an amazing friendship for you on that side as well.
Yes, yeah, he's definitely transitioned from this far off fan to a really passionate fan to a friend to now even a mentor in my life. And it's common for my wife and I to be on a text thread with him, asking him deep questions about my career and what I should do next in my life. He's kind of in that father figure mentor role, and it's far more than just a fan friendship right now. And yeah, he's one of the reasons I'm here today, and he's one of the reasons that I've had the success that I've had actually in this sport. And he's been the one that's always been able to ask me the questions like, what do you need to get to the next level? And that question might be something physical or monetary that he's provided, but I've always taken that question deeper and really thought, like, it's really got me thinking, what is it truly that, my team, meaning my wife and I, need to do to get me to the next level as an athlete? And he's been able to pull that out of me, and that accountability with him has brought me to this next level. And he definitely takes credit for a big part of my success here today.
Yeah. In fact, when we launched the podcast, he was one of the first people to reach out to not just congratulate me, but say, I have someone that needs to be on this season. And it was you. And I said, okay, well, tell me about him. Cause I'm not an avid runner. I didn't know much about that world. But he's like, well, here's 6 YouTube videos, watch every single one in this order. And then he proceeded to provide context. And I gotta be honest, as I was preparing for this, the deeper I got into your story, the more I was just inspired. It really is amazing. But before we get into that, maybe the most important question I ask you today, as I prepare to become a father of 2 girls next month, what advice have you got as I go from 1 to 2 little girls?
Oh man, I didn't know that. Congrats. First of all, that's super exciting. I think when we were going to have baby number 2 and we found out it was a girl, there was a part of me that was like, oh man, like I would love to have a boy, right? Especially being an athlete, being a runner, like to coach a son, and to get them passionate about all things being a boy would be awesome. But man, I feel like I totally rescinded that statement. Like, I love being a girl dad, and that's been a big part of my identity. Like, I just feel like I have no responsibility, but yet like I get all the good things, if that makes sense. Like, Ashley has the responsibility of like bringing them up as as powerful women in this world, and I just get to be a dad that gets to love them and protect them and provide for them, and that's been like really special. But yeah, I would just say show them what it means to be a good man, a good husband, and you are that. Like, I think they're going to be able to make decisions one day about who their partner is going to be in life, and it all starts with the example that you set. And I love kind of setting that example for my daughters. And it's been special too, like as my wife and I have reflected back on, our own fathers. I think there was some initial expectations that she had of me, that she wanted me to be like her dad, like my father-in-law. And it took a little while to get used to the idea that, I get to be my own version of a father and a dad. And I don't have to be my dad. I don't have to be her dad. I get to be who I am. And I love providing that for my daughters.
Yeah. When we found out we were pregnant with our Sadie Jane, our first girl, I was not shy in admitting two things. Number one, that I was not comfortable with babies.
Yeah.
I was the youngest child, didn't grow up around babies. And number two, that I just didn't know the first thing about how to take care of one.
Yeah.
And there was a guiding principle that has served me well. There's one thing that I do know and continue to know to this day, and that is you love.
Yes.
And you love really hard.
Yeah.
And you love consistently, and somehow it all figures out. So we're excited. Obviously, I too would have been totally cool having a boy for all the reasons you've expressed, but zero part of me was disappointed when I found out we were having another girl, and it was time to go girl dad times 2.
Yes. Girl dad for the win, for sure. We call it dad strength in running. Like when you have multiple children, it's called dad strength, and you're expected to like race faster the next race. So now you got double dad strength.
I love it. Well, okay. So before we dive in, like I said, to your story, well, actually, no, before we do that, so in preparation for this, I did a little social media stalking, not only of your account, but your wife's account. And I saw a picture that caught my eye. It was of a gentleman holding your daughters.
Yeah.
And I learned his name is Chris Hughes. So 2 questions. Number one, who is Chris Hughes? And tell us the story behind the picture that I saw.
Yeah. For the listeners, think of the Olympic trials. There's this massive road. There's probably crowds 10 deep. Like it's chaos. Everything's locked down. There's barriers on each side. And this is the finish line. And so it's just a really electric feel. And the race is about to come to an end. So Connor and I, my teammate and I, are coming into the finish line, and we're probably like 2 to 3 miles out. And at this time, like my entire family is like finding a way to get to the finish line. And they're trying to bribe everybody that they can to get to this finish line because they want to be there when I cross the line. And there carries like a certain amount of weight when, you are the one that either is going to be the winner or the second place finisher. And you can kind of get people into the finish line. And so we had good friends and good family that was just trying to sneak all of my loved ones to the finish line. But there was a moment where my wife was by the finish line, and she looks across and she sees our 2 daughters who were with my mother-in-law across the finish line, essentially. Like they were not going to make it. And Chris is standing next to my wife, and my wife is like, look, my husband's coming. He's going to finish this race. He's going to make the Olympic team, and we want our daughters to be at the finish line. Can you go get them? They're right there. And my whole entire entourage, my family and friends, they were wearing these like bright orange shirts so I could see them in the race. And so Ashley points across and she says, those are my 2 daughters. Can you go get them? And he's like, I don't know. Like this is like breaking all rules of marathoning, by the way. And he just so happened to be the race director's son. And Ashley once again like bugs him. And pretty soon another friend of ours starts bugging him too. Like, hey, can you go get these 2 girls that are across the way? And finally he goes and he walks across the finish line, and he picks one up in one hand and one up in the other hand from my mother-in-law. And he walks across the entire course carrying them both, 5 and 3. They're petite, but they're not light by any means, across this finish line before my teammate Connor Manson and I get there. And it was just like this really cool moment to hear, after the fact, that this man named Chris was like cool enough to kind of break all rules, knowing that it was so important to have my family there. And it's kind of funny because all the photographers captured this moment, and you can find it all over social media.
Also, first and foremost, shout out to Chris for making the moment happen.
Yes, yeah.
And number 2, a tip of the hat to him for doing deadlifts so he could get those girls across with no problem.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so I want to do something a little different, a little segment that I've called the Fast or Funny Face-Off.
All right.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a series of 2 unlikely or unexpected competitors that will hypothetically race each other. Now, you're a running expert here. I want you to simply tell me who wins this race and why. Okay?
Gotcha.
So, all right, we're going to start. First of all, I didn't even know this. I had to Google it. The sailfish, which is the fastest fish in the world, versus a cheetah, the fastest land mammal. Who wins?
Oh, cheetah. Cheetah all the way. Cheetah, 40 miles an hour. Like cheetah, the one that I grew up like idolizing, like cheetah, my animal cheetah. Like, yeah, cheetah.
Okay.
I have actually no idea how fast a sailfish swims, but I might be wrong there. But just because of my love and passion, cheetah.
I only know this because I Googled it. Sailfish reach a speed of 68 miles an hour, but cheetahs are 60 to 70.
Oh.
So I think it's actually going to be a pretty close
All
race.
right.
All right. In our pre-production meeting, I kind of alluded to this, but I'm a big Marvel guy.
Okay.
I'm Team Iron Man all day.
Yeah.
But now with that little bit of bias, Iron Man versus Captain America.
Dang it. I say dang it because
You're Captain America guy.
I'm Captain America guy. With the suit, Iron Man's got to win, right? Like I'm
I don't know how he does
mechanical
it.
engineer. Like of course Iron Man's gonna win, but
Yeah.
like Captain America, mono versus mono, man, like suits aside, Captain America.
That's fair. If we take the technology out of it,
Yes.
there you
Yeah.
go. That's fair. Because he's this like superhuman, supernatural kind of guy.
Yes.
There
Oh,
you
yeah.
go. Okay, we're gonna go pop culture here.
Okay. I hope I can do that justice.
Well, we're gonna find out here. Jake Paul versus Logan Paul.
Oh gosh.
Now, in full transparency, I don't necessarily like know much about them, particularly like before they came more into the mainstream with like the boxing and the WWE. But I will say this, like they both appear to be really, really great athletes.
Yes.
Right. I mean, Jake, what he's done in the sport of boxing,
Yeah.
nothing short of amazing. And frankly, even watching like clips of Logan and some of the WWE stuff, whether you follow that or not, like they're pretty electric. But they are brothers. They're hyper competitive. Who wins in a foot race?
I give the nod to Jake because like boxing, I think is more of a pure sport. Like it's the OG, and like fitness is boxing. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it there.
Okay, Jake Paul. There you go. All right, Elon Musk versus Bill Gates.
Elon.
All the way, no hesitation.
Yeah.
You're Team Tesla.
I'm Team Tesla. I this might come like there's obviously something there. So like I remember as a child going to the first Tesla store when I was like 8, and there was only one, and it was downtown LA, and I sat in the original Tesla Roadster, like before Tesla blew up, and I've been a fan since that day. And you could say that's one of my dream cars one day.
That's amazing. We're manifesting it here in the
Yeah,
Dreamers
yeah.
Den. I love it. Okay, so obviously BYU alum,
Yes.
BYU sports fan. I'm assuming you've met these guys. Spencer Linton versus Jerem Jordan. A little BYU Sports Nation here.
You know, I've mostly interacted with Jerem, and so like I'm a little biased there. So like I haven't interacted as much with Spencer, so that's Jerem.
Okay, you're going Jerem. I'm going to go Spencer.
I would say from physique, Spencer, just based off of like what I can imagine. But that's
I'm only going to say Spencer for the sake of if they happen to see this clip. In fact, we'll probably post this and tag him in it.
Yeah.
Spencer and Jerem, you're being called out. We want to see this race happen.
Let's see it.
Okay, there we go. All right, a couple more here. All right, so we're going to go relay race style.
Okay.
The cast of Fast and the Furious versus the cast of Ocean's 11. Who's winning that race and why?
Oh, dang it. Ocean's 11, like anyone can drive a car, but Ocean's 11's got like the skill set behind it. And we'll keep it simple.
I was going to say that too, because if you had come out and said, well, clearly Fast and Furious because they have the cars, it's like, well, Danny Ocean and company steal the cars, rendering them useless.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, and because you're a runner, I got to ask, who wins the race, the tortoise or the hare?
You know, as a marathoner And as a marathoner, that is very much patience followed by destruction, is what I like to call it, where I'm very patient early in my race, and then I like to destroy, meaning I just pass as many people as I can. That last 6 miles of the race, I'll go with the tortoise on this one. You could say that Connor, my teammate, is the hare, and I'm the tortoise, and slow and steady wins the race.
It certainly does, but slow and steady does not describe how you run a marathon. What is your mile time in a marathon?
Yeah, so my marathon time is 2 hours and 8 minutes 00. And it's actually kind of sad because it's technically 2:07:59 point, but they round it up. So I'm forever currently a 2:08 marathoner. And if you don't know marathons, you are described to the minute. So I'm always a 2:08 marathoner. It doesn't matter if I ran 2:08:00 like I did or 2:08:59. So I'm very close to a 2:07 marathoner, sadly. But that mile breaks down to 4 minutes and 53 seconds per mile flat. So yeah, 4 minutes and 53 seconds for 26.2 miles.
Which is unreal. I mean, I can't even fathom that pace for more than 100 meters, let alone 26 miles. That's unbelievable. And also worth noting, for those that are just being introduced to you, you hold the record as the seventh fastest time in American running history.
Correct. Yeah. I actually didn't even know about that till after the fact when somebody told me that, and I was initially shocked as well. That was a great day. But yeah, when I found out seventh fastest time, and ironically, I took seventh place in that race. It was my 7th year anniversary, and I ran the seventh fastest time. It was just like these random coincidences. That was pretty amazing.
That really is amazing. And like I said, while I'm slowly becoming a bigger fan of running as I've gotten to know your story and interacted with Todd. But also I did something monumental. I read a physical book a few months ago, cover to cover. I didn't listen to it. I didn't read it on an iPad or a Kindle. I physically read it. And it was a story about the founder of a brand that I've been a huge fan of for forever. And it was Phil Knight. It was Shoe Dog. And learned all about the founding of Nike and how it was really founded in the world of running. And he talked about an athlete that I didn't know about, but quickly, fell in love with as a competitor was Steve Prefontaine. And he said something, there was a quote from him in that book that I thought was amazing and really kind of revealed just the fierce nature of his competitive spirit, which is someone may beat me, but they're going to have to bleed to do it. And I'm like, man, that gets me so fired up. And I mean, you're out there competing against the best athletes in the country and around the world. And as someone who gets to represent their nation at the 2024 Paris Summer Games, what does it mean to you to have qualified and now get to represent your country in this event?
Yes. Yeah. It means, honestly, the world. It means everything that I've lived up to this moment. I've dreamed about being an Olympian for a long time. And it's surprising, not surprising, but it's like, I can't believe almost that it's become a reality in my mind. And I would be remiss to say that, it is a very individual sport. It is very much like, yes, my grit, my motivation, my determination has brought me to this point, but the support that it has taken, and I've even just as I talked about Todd and just even his support and his accountability in this journey, my wife's support, the BYU community, even just this whole Utah community, it's just been pretty incredible to have their support over years and years and years, decades, and then to finally be able to go and represent that is pretty special. And to take as many people as I can on that journey is pretty special too. There's going to be a lot of people watching, whether in Paris or on their television here at home, but I can't tell you how many times a day people just say, we're going to be watching. We now have somebody to root for. We're excited for you. And that's going to be really exciting. I know that there's going to be moments where there's going to be a cameraman at mile 22 of the race, and I'm going to be able to look dead into that camera and just look into that lens, knowing that all of my friends and family are watching me and I'm representing them, and I get to show them what they have built. And I'm so excited to have that moment. I had glimpses of that moment in the Olympic trials towards the final few miles, but this is going to be pretty special. And so, yeah, I'm excited.
It's interesting to hear you describe marathon running or running in general as a team sport, right? Because outside of, a relay race, like a lot of people could easily assume like, well, no, it's very individualistic, right? And I have similar sentiments, about NASCAR or Formula One or boxing, because it's like there's one individual getting the glory, right? There's one person driving the car, one person throwing the punches. But again, like what people fail to consider is that this is as much a team sport as anything, not just with the support system, the coaches, those behind the scenes, but you have teammates.
Yeah.
And I want you to, I know you've told this story so many times on these podcasts, but I can't get enough of it. And I want to be able to hear it from you directly. February of this year, you're in Orlando, the Olympic trials, right? This determines who gets to represent their country. And you and your teammate are running, and your teammate is out in front and something happens. And then you pull up as a teammate and together get them over the finish line. That's as much as I want to say. I want to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, this is the story that'll go down for the rest of my life. I think I'll have to tell this story for the rest of my life. And I love telling it because I look back on it and I think, wow, Clayton, you were freaking guided to do what you did. Like, I think I was representing something beyond myself. And I'm really proud of the way that I carried myself in that moment. And that sounds weird, maybe to say that, but it really was special to kind of replay that moment after the fact and think of the way I acted. But yeah, for the listeners, essentially what happened is, you have Orlando. It's hot, it's humid. There's over 200 guys in this race, and only 2 of them get to make it to the Olympics that are guaranteed. There's a potential third, but we're not even going to talk about that. Essentially what happens is with about 8 miles to go in the race, my teammate Connor Mance, myself, and another gentleman named Zach Panning break away. And that's the moment where I started to get really excited, and Connor got excited, and we were just like, we got this. And in fact, there's this moment where he actually turns around and he sticks his hand out, and I'm running right behind him, and I'm like, why is your hand sticking out? And I realize he wants a high five. And so I reach forward and I give him this high five, and it's probably the sloppiest high five you'll ever see on NBC. But it was a special moment where it's like, I recognized that Connor was still Team Clayton, right? Well, fast forward, another 6 miles, and at about mile 22, we had dropped third place, and it was just Connor and I. And Connor turns to me and he's like, "You know what? I'm not feeling too well. We're going into the wind. Will you take the lead?" And I said, "Okay, no problem." And I had this special moment where I pretty much got to flash back to essentially, 8 months prior. I am getting wheeled in to get knee surgery. I come out of knee surgery, and I'm essentially in this recovery mode post knee surgery. And it's, who is it that's like cheering me on to get back healthy again? And it's Connor Mance, right? It's Connor Mance that's saying like, "Hey, how's recovery doing? Hey, how's cross training doing? Hey, how's running doing?" Like, he's just building me up little by little by little. And then pretty soon I'm able to start running with him, and he's, looking after me after each run. And then it's all these workouts, and then it's all these lifting sessions, these sauna sessions. And honestly, like, Connor was a big role in the reason that I was able to go from knee surgery in February 2023 to the start line of the Olympic trials in February 2024. And so in mile 23, 3 miles to go, Connor turns to me and he says, "Hey, will you take the lead?" And I'm like, heck yeah. Like, this is my moment to kind of give back. And, if I wanted to win the race right then and there, that's when I should have been like, heck yeah, take the lead, and I'm going to drop you. Like, I'm going to run as fast as I can and make it so that you can't stick on me. But there was essentially 2 goals in my mind going into that race. Number 1 was to make the Olympic team. And at that point, we had put, 20, 30 seconds on third place. And I was feeling very confident that I was going to make it to the finish line. Okay, so what's goal number 2? Well, let's do whatever I can to help Connor Mance make it to the finish line. Because I knew from prior experience that Connor was my biggest asset in being able to create the best Olympic team moving forward. Like, if I made it on the Olympic team and Connor didn't, I could train for Paris and it'd be great. But honestly, my best move to perform well in Paris was to have Connor there every step of the way in training. And so then my goal switched to, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to help Connor cross the finish line. So with about 2 miles to go, he's still right behind me, and I'm kind of motioning to him like, "Hey, why don't you come run with me? Like, let's celebrate this moment." And he's still just like, "No, I'm sticking right behind you. I'm not feeling too well." And we enter the last essentially half mile of the race, and I am so excited. Like, I have visualized this moment, this dream for a long time. I had gone back and watched all of the previous Olympic trials. I'd watched all of my famous and favorite marathoners from the United States. Like, I had seen how they had celebrated the last half mile of the race. And so I was just living my moment. And Connor's right there side by side with me. And you see this point where I veer off the course and I try to grab an American flag. But side note, they actually can't hand you an American flag because if the race is close, they're not supposed to. And I'm just like really enjoying this moment. And Connor is just like beelining it for the finish line. Like, he is hurting so bad and he doesn't want to risk this moment. And with about 30 meters to go, is Connor and I are side by side, and Connor puts in just the slightest of surge, just with this last desperation to get across the finish line. Like, Connor, he was the number 1 seed going in. He had been up since 3 a.m., just ridden with anxiety about this race, and he just wanted to be finished. And I was just there enjoying every moment. And as he puts in this last surge, it kind of caught me off guard, and I think it caught Connor off guard. And so I motioned to him, and he crosses the line first, and I crossed the line right after him. And it was this kind of cool moment where he got to celebrate. Like, it's the only time where he puts his arms up and he celebrates across the finish line. And I think that's pretty special. And then obviously I got to cross and celebrate with him. And, looking back, like, yeah, I left a lot of money on the table. Yeah, I don't have that title as the top American technically, but at the end of the day, like, I wouldn't have it any other way. And the story and like the friendship and the camaraderie and just everything around it, like I said, looking back at the way that all played out, like, was pretty special, and I felt pretty guided to do so.
Well, I love that story of him helping you get back on your feet earlier, back in 23, and then you helping him cross that finish line. I mean, like you said, that builds a team dynamic, right? And like you said, going into this summer, you guys have that with you to push each other and to be able to rely on each other and trust each other, because I'm sure there's still a lot of work ahead to get ready.
Yeah, the work has just begun. We're essentially 15 weeks out from the Olympics this last Saturday. And yeah, it just barely started, and we've had our first couple workouts together, and we are definitely going to be able to like push each other to our limits. We have different strengths when it comes to the Paris Olympic course. It's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, and it's going to be hilly. I'm very good at the heat and humidity. He's very good at the hills. And I think playing off each other's strengths, we're just going to be able to be, the best athletes representing the United States.
How typical is it in an Olympic setting to have competitors from the same country also be teammates?
I don't know of any. None that I'm aware of. Like, there's kind of this general spoken camaraderie in the Olympic Games that you might work with a teammate. But, as we've said on the podcast, like, this is kind of an individual sport, especially on the Olympic level. And the fact that Connor and I get to kind of just, say, yeah, right, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to work together. We're going to train together. We're going to do the best we can, is going to be pretty special. I think back to the 2016 games, and a big mentor of mine, Jared Ward, he had some teammates in the race as well, but they didn't train together. They didn't really know each other's strategies on the start line, and they weren't really looking out for each other. And I think Jared would have been happy to do so, but a couple of the other athletes were just kind of in their own little world. And I think it brings a lot of strength when you're going to compete on a world stage, if you can, have a teammate and a friend and somebody to keep you accountable and motivated out there.
Well, congratulations to you, and congratulations to Connor. I mean, what a cool experience you guys have ahead of you. I was filled briefly with the Olympic spirit last spring. We did a Mediterranean cruise and got to go to Greece and saw some of the, I think it was like an Olympic, I don't know if they still compete there or if it was, there was some history there, right? Mm-hmm. But it was cool to kind of like experience that ahead of the 2024 games. So, but the last thing I want to focus on, obviously running a marathon is like a master class in perseverance. in putting one foot in front of the other again and again and again. But success in general requires perseverance. And even getting to have the opportunity to compete what you got to compete for has taken an unbelievable amount of perseverance. And again, I know a little bit about your story, a little bit of conversation before the show, but there were moments when you were ready to call it quits, but you didn't. Tell us what you can about those moments leading up to the Chicago Marathon that got you qualified for the trial, let alone competing for a spot.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but in brief, like to understand the world of professional running, you essentially, you earn money in three ways. One, it's through prize money. Two, it's through your appearances at big races. And let me tell you, if you're not earning prize money, you're probably not getting an appearance. And then three is through your professional contract, usually endorsements. I'm a professional athlete for ASICS. And going into 2022, essentially, I had this goal of running 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 30 seconds. And that was like a big bucket list on my contract to be able to renegotiate with ASICS. And, I go into this race, gun goes off, go through halfway, it's looking pretty. I get to the last couple miles. And in short, like I can't go in too much into detail, but like I end up fading the last little bit. And I see three guys go 2:09:20, 2:09:30, 2:09:40, and I fade all the way to 2 hours, 11 minutes, and 51 seconds. I missed my goal. And, I was going into contract negotiations, and it just was like, I remember crossing the finish line and talking to my wife and being like, all right, I think this might be it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be up for negotiations. I don't know if this dream is going to come to an end. I can go work my desk job as an engineer, right? I've tried to live the dream, but luckily, ASICS could really see that there was a lot more in the tank. And, like I alluded to, there's big mentorship and friendship through Todd that kind of motivated me as well. And, we ended up signing another contract. But what was interesting as well is shortly after that was October 2022. And in December of 2022 is when I started to feel that knee pain. And, I went through lots of rehab, December, January, February, and it just wasn't getting better. And I was like talking to all the doctors and the PTs. I was like Googling every homeopathic remedy you could think of, like any crazy person with Google does these days. And it just wasn't happening. And so that's when I eventually decided, the doctor said we could do knee surgery. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And let me tell you, like February of 2023 is the worst time to be getting not the worst time, but like pretty much the worst time to be getting knee surgery before an Olympic year of 2024. Especially because in a marathon, like fitness builds from year to year to year. And when you think about how running not only is like my livelihood and my career at that point, primarily, but it's also like my passion and my drug. Like it is like literally like the endorphins that I receive every day. And when you take all of that away, like I was definitely in the lowest part of my life by a long shot. And that's when like I really had to, as you said, put one foot in front of the other. I like to talk about sometimes this idea by a guy named Robert Chambliss called the mundanity of excellence, and how truly becoming excellent at something just requires a bunch of mundane tasks. And as we focus on the mundane tasks, the mundane process, the excellent outcome will eventually come. And that's kind of what I had to focus on post-knee surgery. It was just literally one step at a time until I could do one jog at a time, to one run at a time, to one sprint at a time. And it's this idea essentially that as we focus on the mundanity, the excellence will come. It also reminds me of something my coach, Ed Eyestone, two-time Olympian, he often says, consistent competence brings eventual excellence. And I love the word consistent and competent because competence doesn't mean you're hitting home runs. It just means you're hitting base hits day after day after day. It's the one step in front of another. It's the mundanity. But as you're consistent with the mundanity, you will eventually be excellent. There's no promise to win, but you will be. And I, after 4 or 5 years of being a pro runner, I eventually received on the world standard excellence by making the US Olympic team. And yeah, that's the journey in a nutshell.
Here's a question that I think is interesting to ask. As you said, one of the best in the world at your chosen discipline, that I think sometimes people wonder, was there ever a point where you were ready to give up, to quit, to walk away because it was too hard, too much, the road ahead seemed impossible?
Yeah, I remember a very specific moment, actually 2 months or maybe about 6 weeks after knee surgery. I had been running. I had done the warm-up of this workout. I was ready to get on the track with some of my teammates to do this workout, and my knee was hurting. And I was like, dang it. Like, I had just gone through all this rehab. I'd just done knee surgery. And all I wanted to do was just work out. Like, I just wanted to run. Like, just let me run. And I remember sitting on an athletic training table and my coach coming up to me and he says, hey, like, are you going to hop in after the warm-ups? Essentially, he's like, are you going to hop in the workout? And I'm like, I don't even know what to tell him. And I just break down and I have no words and I just lose it. Like, the tears start coming and I'm like, why did I go through knee surgery? Like, why did I do all this for nothing? And, it was the last essential hiccup before I finally had my breakthrough, ironically, right? It was just after that where I pushed, a couple days more, started doing some things with my knee that started feeling better. And from there, I haven't had a hiccup since with my knee. And, that was a very special moment. And I remember some very poignant texts thereafter from Jared Ward and Connor Mance, my teammates, essentially saying like, hey, we saw you today. Like, yes, we saw you on that athletic training table, wrestling with the demons inside. But that's the moments that I remember where I think I was going to quit.
So the last thing I want to do is called the Dreamer's Digest. If the Clayton Young of today, knowing what he knows now, having done what he's done at this point in his career, could go back and speak to Clayton Young in that moment, on the verge of quitting, of giving up, of not putting another foot forward, taking another step, what would you tell him?
It's funny because I almost said I'd almost spoil the ending, right? Like I'd say, well, you're going to make an Olympic team and it's going to all be all right. Like that seems simple, but then that would just rob Clayton of 2023 February, like of the process of the journey, right? That would rob him of the growth, which is honestly what brought the success. So in a way, I almost wouldn't say anything because like that was needed for Clayton. That was needed for him to become the person that he is today. And he's going to need to remember that for the next time something goes wrong. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the next injury comes or the next setback or the next heartache in life. So in a way, I'd like to just be a fly on the wall and just let Clayton deal with the emotions and the heartache for a moment and just maybe give him a big hug and say, just try to have some fun with it. Enjoy the moment and recognize the relationships that you have that will last and that don't depend on your success.
And aside from that being inspiring to your community, your country, and even the world, your little girls are going to know that about their dad.
Yeah.
And that's probably the coolest part of all.
Yes.
That's so awesome. Well, you've been listening to the Dreamer's Den podcast with future Olympian Clayton Young. Clayton, people are going to want to follow you, want to cheer you on. Where can they find you? Learn more.
Yeah. You can catch me on social media, Clayton Young on Instagram, and then Strava. I love a good Strava follow. I love the interaction in the community of endurance athletes on Strava. And then keep your eyes out for a docuseries coming out soon.
And where will that be at?
On YouTube.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll be following along. We'll definitely be cheering you on. Congratulations on your success. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. If you've enjoyed today's episode, everybody, be sure to give us a follow at Dreamers Den Podcast on social media, as well as subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcasts. On behalf of the entire Dream Team, I'm Brad Robbins, reminding you to work hard, be kind, and always dare to dream.